This episode of Love Larn is sponsored by Scott Bonnar Fabrication and Parts.
Alright, so we've got a decision to make at this stage. We've got our clutch spring and the other clutch half, which we can pop into place now and bolt these two halves together. The other option that we have is to install this clutch half on the engine shaft. So it might be worthwhile just checking the fit of this shaft. I believe this was a new clutch half and the engine's new, so it should be a perfect fit. It might be a little bit on the side as well. If we have this in place and then we're introducing the engine into that that hole, it might be a little bit tricky to get it all sort of lined up and happy before we can bolt it all together. So I think that's the approach I'm going to take. I'm just going to make sure these two grub screws have been backed off so that they're not going to interfere with the installation, and we'll try and slide this on the engine and have a look and see how it fits. So this is the new 3.5 horsepower, what is it, the 550 I think, Briggs Stratton engine that we're going to put on this machine. It's a new shaft with a nice new keyway there on it. What I want to check is that this clutch half, which is very clean on the inside, no bolts in the way, I want to see how much love it's going to take to get it home. And I'll do it. I'll just turn this around a little bit because I just want you to see the clutch half sitting in place there. Obviously we'll get our keyway, our key in place anyway, but before I do, obviously you can see there's a little bit of sort of wiggle room in terms of how you pop this thing on here. The common approach is to make sure that there's about a 5mm gap, about like that maybe, on between the clutch, the end of the clutch half here, and the engine itself. In this case, I'm working off of this little section of the shaft that sort of widens out at this section, which kind of roughly aligns to the edge of the housing, the casting there anyway. So I'm going to pop my new key in here, tie a bit of grease, just check the fit of course. So obviously we want to be very careful with this shaft because it's new and we want to keep it in good shape. It looks like that key is going to fit in there with a little bit of coercion, which is probably about right. So what we don't want is we don't want any play in this section of the mower, because it will destroy that shaft and then it'll be up for a new engine. Pop a bit of grease on there again, just for, we saw that that clutch half go on there easily, so that's fine. Just want to make sure that this key is going to come back out of here, should it need to in the future. And rather than drop this one in, I can slide it in from the sort of end of the shaft here. So I think that's the approach I'm going to take, as assuming it will go all the way in there. I think I could just drop it in anyway, but give it a little gentle little tap. And check the alignment. Obviously that needs to slide in a bit more, but just want to see if things are going to still work out for us. They are, with that key in place. Give that a little nudge. I'm just being very, very gentle here, just to make sure that that's seated entirely. Looks pretty good. Alright, so there's probably enough grease on there. I've got my two grub screw retaining bolts out of the way. The old clutch halves have a larger hole for a cotter pin, but if you're getting a new clutch half, go with the double retaining bolt. It was an improvement made by Rover, and it's worth having, because the cotter pins, well, they'll still work fine, but they can be a bit of a pain in the neck. So what's happened here, if you can see that clutch, little key has slipped back a little bit as I've pushed this into place. So I think that's going to jam and we're going to get into trouble. So I'm just going to knock that back down, and we'll try and find a way of holding it in place while we slide over it. And what I don't want to do is do any damage to the inside of this, the keyway on the clutch half. And similarly, I don't want to damage the engine shaft. I'll just pull that off and have a look inside and see what's going on. Might be easier in the end. Try and tap this home from here. It's hanging up on something on the inside of that clutch half. Basically, the key was still sort of sitting in that recess, so just give it a little tap to pop it all the way home. It's sort of hung up on something on the inside there. So we'll try and pop it back on here now and see how we go. And we don't have to fool with the engine shaft. There we go. So that's not bad. Because the end of the slot ramps up a little bit further, I'd like the clutch half sitting a little bit closer to the engine, so I'm going to knock that key slot, that key, down just a little tiny bit further. I was just using a little block of wood previously. I'll carry on with that. Let's see how we go. It's not perfect. I think that's better now, so that's sitting, mucked up my paintwork a little bit, and I'll fix that up, but I can see that key is now sitting a little bit sort of further into that slot. So we'll line that up again and test it out. And I think that's pretty good. We've got a little bit of room between engine and the clutch half here. It looks like we're about 5 mils exactly off the section of that the engine shaft where it starts to rise up. So that's how we want it. Slip this back off for a second, fix up that paint, and then we're ready to get this engine onto the machine. Just to finish off, I don't want this solid metal knob coming off of that clutch lever, so I'm going to get a bit of my thread locker on here. I'm going to be fairly liberal with it, because in all honesty I don't want that knob to come off, and I'm not planning to remove it either. And then we'll just thread this knob back in. And I'm just going to hold it very carefully until it's all the way on. Just wipe off some of the excess thread locker that's squeezed out, and get it nice and tight on there, so it doesn't come flying off. And there we go.